Hi, everyone. We're so happy that you're joining us. Right now, we've got almost 400 people in the room, and we have a capacity for 1,000. And we actually just have over 1,000 people register for this event. And so we're going to hang back a little bit, maybe a minute, probably not more than 2 minutes, and then we'll start the webinar. It's 1:01. We still have people coming in, so we're going to wait that second minute. Thank you for your patience. All right, so I've got a lot of people in the chat box saying that it's blurry. I don't see it blurry, and I'm sharing my screen.
It actually just improved for me.
It just improved for you. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to get rid of my participant panel. Maybe that'll help. It says I have one person waiting. I don't know why they're waiting.
I don't know why, but I admitted them, and it says.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna leave that to you. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
I don't know what that was about.
And then just
all right.
Just before you start, just get close out your chat box on the screen, please.
Okay.
So
it's clear to me. I think it could have to do with bandwidth. After the more things you close, the sharper it got.
Okay. All right. Well, Larry, we've got some chats coming in. I know some of them was about blurry. I think before I closed it, there was one about person not being able to hear us. But we can all hear each other just fine. So I'm hoping for whoever that is that it's some technical piece on your end. You'll have a control panel that's probably on the top or it's probably on the bottom, and you'll have an opportunity to see which speaker you could choose.
Yeah, they wrote that they can hear now.
Oh, great, thank you.
They're saying that the screen is clearer also.
Oh, good, great. I love it when it works out and I didn't have to do anything. All right, it is 1:03 and people are still piling in, and that's all great. We're just going to continue. So I just want to say good afternoon and welcome to Supervising from Home. This is a wonderful collaborative effort between NIAPers and CPI. My name, I probably should tell you my name, is Ruth Colon-Wagner, and I work with NIAPers as Director of Training and Development. And just a little bit.
I'm sorry, Ruth.
Just a little bit about me. I've been in the field for 31 years. I actually just did the math. I actually thought it was more than that, but it's 31 years. And what I love about my work history is that I've done a lot of different, I've had a lot of different positions in the helping profession, a lot of different service delivery systems. So I've been working in homeless services, employment services, obviously mental health, behavioral health. I've worked in the children's divisions and the adult division, so I bring a lot of that to bear. And I also have, for the majority of those 31 years, I think 25 of the 31, I've been in management. So I usually do the webinars or teaching in general on supervision. And I'm just hoping that, last thing I need to share, for the last 6 years, I've been supervising remotely. So I have, my position is a remote position, and I supervise staff who also are remote. So I hope I bring all of that information to bear for you, all of those experiences.
Okay, and hello, everybody. I'm Paul Margulies. I'm an Associate Director of the Center for Practice Innovations. Like Ruth, I've been in the field a while. I've actually been supervising over 40 years, long before
Awesome.
we ever heard of Zoom or remote supervision.
Yes.
I'm just delighted to be here, and CPI is delighted to be working with NAPRS on today's webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hella Torning. I'm also at the Center for Practice Innovation, CPI, with Paul, and delighted to be here today and collaborating with NIAPAS and Ruth on this presentation about supervision. At CPI, I'm the director of the ACT Institute and work with ACT teams throughout New York State. And I've also been in the field for a long time and have been thinking a lot about supervision, but obviously now we are in a very different environment. Now we are working from home and all the challenges that it brings to bear, and how we can think about this and be as creative as possible in keeping the people that we supervise, our teams together during this time. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and thanks Ruth and Paul for inviting me to participate.
You kidding me? Thank you both so much for joining us. So before we go on to the slides, I do have some housekeeping, as we usually do. Many of you might be interested in CEUs. We offer CEUs for social work, mental health counseling, and CPRP. Now, in order to be eligible, you would have to do two things. Number one is register for this webinar, which you already did. And two is fill out an evaluation form. So after the webinar, and I will, to play it safe, let's say within 24 hours, you will get an email with the evaluation form. You fill that out. We'll need to know who is filling that out, and that's how we connect that to your attendance here today. And those two in combination would allow us to provide you with CEUs. So for today, the webinar is an hour and a half. And so that means that we provide you with 1.5 CEUs. Okay, so it's an hour and a half. You're not used to webinars that are an hour and a half. You know, everybody tries to target that 1 hour because our time is so stretched. We decided we were going to do an hour and a half because we didn't want to just talk to you. We want to have a conversation with you. And so a lot of what we are going to do today is, yes, we're going to be talking, but we're also going to be asking you questions, and we're all going to be learning from each other in that respect. And we're going to ask you to use a chat box for that. Another housekeeping detail, in order to communicate with you, you may have noticed you're already muted. We ask that you stay muted, and there's a lot of people on the line, so please, on your end, just in case our technology gets all messed up, on your end, also mute yourself for some double insurance on that. Oh, and I think you also might have the ability to activate your camera, and I'm going to ask you, please don't do that. And lastly, to be able to have less pictures on the screen, you might want to choose what's it called, the speaker view. So that's the square white box with 3 dots on top of it. You click that, and then you will only see the person who's talking. All right, I think that's it. So next.
Ruth, there was one question about whether or not people would be able to get the PowerPoint after.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with me. We will post the PowerPoint. We are also recording this, and so we're going to post that as well. So you will receive an email saying that it's posted. And if you don't receive an email for whatever reason, just go to niapers.org and we'll post it there, and you'll see a link to it. So if you don't know about NIAPers, we're what we call a change agent organization, and we're dedicated to improving services, public policies, and social conditions for people with mental health, substance use, and trauma-related challenges. And we do this by promoting their health, their wellness, and their recovery. And we believe in full community inclusion. And that everyone will achieve their maximum potential. And so we do this through advocacy. We do this through education, and that's the piece that I'm doing right now. We do this through demonstration, and that's our peer services. And we do this through innovation, and that's all of our services. Paul?
Sure. And the Center for Practice and Innovations, we deliver a wide array of training to increase the competencies of the New York State behavioral healthcare workforce, and implementation supports to ensure the successful application of that training within agencies and organizations. So what does that mean? We do a lot of training, much of it remotely, like we're doing right now, some of it the old-fashioned way, face-to-face, but we don't stop at training. We also put a lot of emphasis on helping your programs, helping your agencies to implement whatever the practices are. Because we do believe that implementation support is just as important, if not more important, than the training itself. And we work with supervisors, we work with agency administrators, we work with folks who are providing the services to make sure that everybody's working together around the implementation efforts. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you. So, orientation to our new normal. You know, today's topic, supervising from home, but our new normal, it really isn't my intention to go into the challenges that we now face regarding COVID. We all know them, we all feel them. I strongly believe we're all experiencing trauma as a result of it. However, it has been COVID, and it has been the stay-at-home orders that are placing on us in this position to figure out how we're going to, number one, do work differently, right? Can't bring people in, people have to stay at home. So we're thinking about the service delivery model and how we're doing that differently. And sort of on the back end is just, yes, and along with that goes the supervision, but that's not really what's primary. Primary is always, you know, taking care of the people that we work with. So the service delivery system is important, but we also feel it's important to take care of the supervisors, because you in turn take care of the staff. They in turn take care of the people that they work with. So we're happy that you're joining us. Okay, one of the things I want you to keep at the forefront of your minds is that just like our service delivery system and our work with the people in our care is person-centered, the supervision is person-centered, and they're working differently and they're stressed. So there are things that we just need to acknowledge and accept and build upon our relationship with the staff. They're struggling personally. I mean, you know, you might be one who's a parent, so you're now working from home and you're helping your child with all the homework at home. And of course, you've got your child at home on top of the homework and all that that brings. There's social deprivation that we feel, that your children are feeling. And the situation is traumatic. And so whatever emotional situation any of us may have, this just exacerbates it. And just letting you know, not only that, but people may also be in fear of losing their jobs. And that's incredibly stressful on top of everything else. So we have a chat box question. Paul?
Sure. So as Ruth had mentioned, we designed this webinar to be a conversation. And the way we can best have that conversation is through use of the chat box. So probably at the bottom of your screen, if you hover down there, you'll see the chat box. And if you click on there, it'll give you the ability to comment. So this is the first of what will be several, a number of chat box questions. And we want to start off with the big question, and that is, so what challenges do you find now with supervising staff remotely? You know, most of you have pivoted on a dime so quickly. You know, your agencies and your programs have begun to work in a very different way, to work remotely, as well as provide services remotely. So what challenges are you finding? We're going to give you a minute or two, a couple of minutes to type up. We'll read some of those as they come in.
So Paul and Hella and Larry, just to let you know, I don't have my chat box open. If I open it, then you're going to see it twice on your screen. Let me know if you want me to open it, because I'd like to be able to field the questions for you.
Thank you. I think we're probably okay.
So some of the questions or comments that are coming in has to do, some of it is about technical difficulties. That's one of the issues that are coming in, like how do you handle when people are having technical difficulties and even getting on to a platform.
Mm-hmm.
Team communication is a challenge. Knowing what staff are truly doing.
Yes.
The ability to obtain information quickly.
Mhm.
Here's one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Missing the little question they would ask throughout the day when they could just pop into the office next door.
Yeah. Few that have to do with the accuracy of what we're hearing.
Right. Accountability.
Yes.
And I think an important thing is difficulties keeping boundaries of balance of the work and home when you are in your home working.
That's right.
Here's what I can relate to: learning to use the new technology fast. I can relate to that.
Yes,
I still don't know how to share my screen on Zoom. Still can't figure it out.
It's a crash course.
Sure is.
Here's another one I know I can relate to. I'm sure everybody can as well. Missing the general day-to-day interactions.
Yes. So it was like I said, 6 years ago that I started with NIAPRS, and my position was and is a remote position. But that was the first time that I ever worked so insular without people around me. I was happy I was home, but I really missed the socialization piece of it. I really missed being able to run into that office and just ask that one question like a participant just mentioned. And I remember when I'd see my friends outside, I would be like, people, I need people. I was desperate for the socialization. It's been 6 years now, so I've acclimated and I have friends in different ways. And of course, life is different now for everybody.
I think that's a good point. And I just want to put out one other thing that I also think kind of stresses the unique time right now is when one person says feeling connected to staff when they're the ones having to go out and work on the front lines while I am working from home. So that's an important piece to bring up because on the team, some people have to go out
That's right.
in the field and some people can work from home. So I think that's an important thing to pay attention to as we think about supervising in this kind of environment.
Yeah.
A good
Great.
point. There's somebody who says challenging to turn it off at the end of the day. Right? It's so easy to turn it off when you have to take the subway or drive home.
That's right.
When you're still in your house.
And you hear the ding, another email just came in, and you ask yourself, should I just go see what it is, or make believe I'm not even there? And it's hard because it's just so easy to look at an email and say, oh, that'll just take me 1 minute. And then of course, an email leads to work, leads to everything else. So we're going to talk about self-care much later in the presentation, but I feel you, been there, am there.
Yeah.
Shall we move on, or we have more coming in?
Just to summarize, I'm seeing some themes here. So one theme is technology and getting used to it and feeling competent with it. Another theme is just connecting with staff in different ways. And that's everything from the nature of the interactions to accountability and being able to trust, what people are doing. So that's another theme. And then a third thing seems to be boundaries, professional and personal boundaries.
Yes.
Cool.
All right, wonderful. Thank you all so much. This is going to be a wonderful webinar with everyone participating. I'm excited. All right, so we're now going to talk about some recommended strategies, and we're actually going to present to you some concrete strategies for you to use, and take what you can from it and leave what you can't use. It's just the way it is. We're going to present to you as much as we can, and some of it will apply and some won't. So the first is increasing communication. Duh, right? But it's true, we need to increase communication, and let's do that in specific ways. First, it's important, if you see the column on the left-hand side there, to acknowledge feelings. It's okay to do that. It's okay to say how you're feeling, how you're doing. Some people think that that's, overstepping, but it really isn't, and especially not now. It's really important for us to check in emotionally and see, as supervisors, we have a responsibility. We can, to see if there's an intervention. And so we're not their social workers, right? We're not their therapists. But as a supervisor, you can recommend to them the employee assistance program or some other kind of support. And so that's always really important. And of course, that allows the staff person to really feel seen and valued and heard. Overall staff wellness is a priority. I'd like to say that yours is a priority as well. It's just really very important. It builds the relationship. Actually, in a moment, we're going to talk about relationships. But it's not just about, the work is not just about reporting out. So if you see here, Institute of Communication Plan on the right-hand side, some of this does speak to productivity, and we'll get to productivity in a moment. But what's really critical in your communication plan is to create discipline, create a schedule, and give me my boundaries. So we just had someone say that it's difficult to turn this off at the end of the workday because your office is now where you live. Or yes, I said that right. So tell me what my schedule is. If you are my supervisor and I worked, 8 to 4 at the job when I was on site, when we were all on site, what's my time now? It might be different. It might be the same, but they need to hear that from you. You need to set the boundaries and the communication around their work now. It says work discipline. That's all part of it, right? So what time do you start? What time do you end? What time do you take lunch? And we know all of these things from experience of not doing them, I'm sure. And I'm speaking to many of you out there. And if I had a mirror, I'd be speaking to me too. I know this from experience from not doing it. And it's really important to take care of ourselves. And in turn, we need to take care of the people that report to us. Another question to ask your staff is, where are they working? We know that they're home. They're not in a coffee shop because all coffee shops are closed. But where are they working in their home? Do they have a desk? Do they feel comfortable? Not too comfortable, not on their couch. Do they feel productive? That's really what you're reaching for. Do they feel that they've chosen a space in their home where they can be alert and they can actually, get into work mode? And so I understand when you've got a lot of hubbub around you, sometimes even children, that could be really difficult. But to maximize the space where you could really concentrate on work and work alone. Technology, somebody just mentioned it. I mean, yeah, and we're all learning Zoom and other platforms. Zoom isn't the only one, obviously, but it's different. I've done remote supervision for 6 years now, and it's only been since COVID that I started to actually use the video. Everything else, all those years, was telephone. So yes, telephone is acceptable for those individuals who don't have the Zoom or who don't know how to use it. I would encourage you to use Zoom and to support your staff and help them to figure out how to do this. And I'm sorry, I said use Zoom, use whatever it is that you need to do, but the important thing is that the communication is important. I prefer seeing people. That just requires that I get up and put on some makeup in the morning, which I do not like. All right, I'm going to keep going because I'm running out of time. Identify an open door policy, or just be clear about what your hours are. Because previously, when we all shared the same office, somebody could just run into your office, quickly ask a question, and then that's it. They may now email you, and you're so inundated you haven't responded. So it's important for them to say, okay, it's 5:55. Should I really call, or did they finish work at 5? They should know when you finish work in the same way that you know when they finish work. So that it's just really very clear, and they know that you've got this policy that you want them to reach out to you during your working hours. And then lastly, regarding communication, is to create a consistent supervision meeting time, date and time, and of course, consistent team meetings. And Hella will speak more about teams and team meetings. Why is consistency important in supervision? You know, it's not just about reporting out, you know, me, the supervisor, and you're my staff, and I'm needing to hear the work that you've done this week. It's not just about that, although productivity is important. It's about me teaching, right? This is an opportunity for me to teach, as supervisors should always be doing. It's an opportunity for me to continue to support the person, as supervisors should always be doing. And it's also an opportunity for them to ask us questions. They can't just run into your office. So they can say to themselves, well, my boss stopped working. I can't just pick up the phone and call her. So tomorrow's supervision, let me write it down in my book to make sure that I don't forget. It's an opportunity also for you to keep them in the loop in terms of what's happening in the organization, especially at this time. I mean, that's sort of a given at all times, but especially during this time, it's important because people are just afraid of getting furloughed or getting laid off or not being needed, and you know, their paycheck and their livelihood and you know, their passion for the work and what happens to all that. So there are some very real fears out there. So building a strong relationship is very important. And I know in talking just now about the communication, we had to build in pieces of relationship building. But essentially, the idea is that you're always building a strong relationship with your staff. And that's when they first start. That's when you're all working in the office. If you've even supervised them for 10 years, our job of building that strong relationship doesn't end. It's almost like engagement for the people we work with, right? We're always working on engagement and getting a, you know, creating a culture of feedback. So it's the same thing with the staff as well. And we want to be able to provide that structure for them. And that creates a strong relationship because you're not going to more than likely, excuse me for saying this, but blow me off, right? You're going to have supervision with me. I know you're going to have supervision with me every Friday at 11, and I can count on that. And I can count on you supporting me in my emotional well-being as well. And we're going to get together. We're going to get together privately. I would suggest once a week, one-on-one supervision, but also set frequent team meetings. And before COVID, I used to have team meetings once a month. Again, they were on the telephone, and now they're on the Zoom platform. But now we have it once a week. And it's because things are changing so fast, and we're trainers. We're working so differently, right? My staff can't go out to your agency and train you. Number one, you're not there, but number two, they're not allowed outside. So it's important for us to learn how to work differently, and for all of us, all the time, continuing to build our relationships with each other. When you meet with a person individually, it's important to check in emotionally. Are they well? But are they acclimating to the work? Are they still having problems transitioning, working from home? It's an opportunity for them to ask questions. And then, of course, value your employees, each of them individually and as teams, and value their contributions that they bring. And I know not everything is you know, roses, but everyone needs to feel valued, and everyone does contribute something. So this, most especially during this time, is an opportunity for you to build that strong relationship with your staff. Next, I want to talk about, excuse me, trust. And yes, we know there are staff that know their job and we trust them, and there are others that we know need a little bit more micromanaging. I'd like to say that for right now, everyone is working, doing something different, right? It's almost a blank slate. And so that doesn't mean to micromanage people, but that does mean to set guidelines, to really share what your expectations are. Do you have expectations of them? You should. They need to know what they need to know in order to do their job. They need to know what the expectations are so that they have an opportunity to meet up to those expectations. What I love about this is that, you know, when we practice trust, staff enjoy that and they feel creative and something that obviously they really can't do when they're micromanaged. But not all of us need that time to be able to just be creative and do my work, because this is new for all of us. And so we all need to be learning together. And that's a wonderful message for you as a supervisor to be able to share with your staff. We are in this together. We are learning this together. I am here for you. I will teach you as much as I can. You will teach me what you're learning out there and how you're doing this work differently. It is about building that strong relationship consistently. All right, this is great. Okay, I'm going to pass this along to Hella.
Thank you, Ruth. So you really set up sort of the importance of the communication with each of the people that you supervise. And many of you have also a group of people that you supervise. Sometimes people are together and from coming together from different professions too. So thinking about how you can also foster the interprofessional team collaboration is really important. And in this time, now more than ever. That way, your team can also come together, come together as a group, as Ruth was mentioning, in terms of the regular meeting schedule that you have, but you're also fostering a way that people can begin to work together and collaborate and continue that in this new environment where we are working remotely. And we know that when teams come together, their ability to work towards the health and wellness of the people that we serve, that's often more than just one person can do. So having a really strong team that works together, that have a good sense of what each of them are doing is important, and doing it frequently, as Ruth was mentioning, that more frequent contact now that we are working from home, where we are feeling more isolated, where we can't just in an impromptu way jump into to each other's offices, or when we're on our way to get a cup of coffee. That's where we often in the past have exchanged information about the work that we are doing, or some difficult or challenging situations we have, and brainstorming with one another. So finding a new way of doing that when we have to work online is very, very critical. So again, important to both do, have your regular meeting, but also thinking about how you can replace or substitute or come up with new creative ways of having impromptu ways of getting together and getting that input from your colleagues that is so important. So we can move on to talk a little bit more about sort of the interprofessional team. So we can go to the next slide, Ruth. So I wanted to just think about in most behavioral health organizations now, we are working together and we bring different professions together to really enhance the work we are doing. And our teams are now really comprised of individuals who have different professional backgrounds. And note that I'm using interprofessional team, and I'm not saying multidisciplinary team or interdisciplinary team. I'm using interprofessional team because that team and that concept really includes both the peer, the people with lived experience, the peer specialist, and also family or family advocates. So when we talk about the interprofessional team, it is it's a collaborative practice with multiple behavioral health workers from different professional backgrounds and with people who have lived experience, peers and family advocates, provide this comprehensive service and working with service participants, their family, caregivers, and community to deliver the highest quality of care across settings. So that's really sort of the definition. And I think in this day and age, we have very many, and most places include, or we hope that everybody includes also the lived experience as active participants on the team to really enhance the service that we're doing. So I'm now going to just talk a little bit about how you, in general, and also in this time, really keep having this sense of what it is you as a team are doing. So you have, it's important to develop, make sure that you all share the mission and vision of what you're doing. But by that, I mean, who are the people you're serving? What do we know about the unique challenges? What do we know about the social determinants for this population? And what's the overall goal of our program? So if you as a team spend some time talking about this, you really have a sense that you're all on the same page, that you all kind of know what you do and why you're doing what you're doing. Very important, and also important in also as we're working from home, in that, you know, making sure there's so many distractions now, there's so many different things that we can be concerned about, that sometimes it can be hard to kind of keep everybody, you know, on task and doing the work that we have set out to do and that we are together to do. So really having a sense of, you know, reminding oneself what the mission and vision is for the work that you are doing. Secondly, is really to understand and knowing the team, and for the team to understand each other's roles, and what everybody brings together from their different scope of practice. So a nurse brings something together to get to the table that is different from the psychiatrist or the physician or the social worker psychologist who's working with the family, or the substance use specialist. So as a team leader, both understanding what the scope of practices that each of the people are on your team is really important, and then also for them to understand what each other are bringing to the team, and then you as the team leader is really trying to help, you know, bring collaboration and provide synergy, so that the synergistic effort, so that everybody is working together towards with a different scope of practice, at different sets of expertise. Now, knowing the people behind the team role is also critical and very important. And we'll talk a little bit in next way of how you also can do that in a fun way. But really knowing how they came to the work, what was their own sense of mission, personal vision for the work, and understanding strengths and vulnerabilities. Again, in this time where we are all sort of having and dealing and reacting to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to understand and respect that each person has a different experience with this, their own personal stories. But again, that's important for people, not just in this situation, it's highlighted by this situation, but it's something that's really important for the work in general. Collaborative leadership, again, how do you as a leader keeping the team on track, on task, and on track, finding a way of having everybody sort of, again, with knowing what the shared mission is and the vision is, that you have people working towards the same goal, and synthesizing the information that people are bringing to the table. So it's really the kind of the task for the supervisor to bring everything in and synthesizing and helping with the development of action steps that are critical to keep the team on task. Furthermore, as a supervisor, also setting sort of the tone for your team in terms of the interprofessional communication skills, being respectful, appreciating differences, and model in a way the mutuality and respect is a critical stance for a supervisor, especially as you can model and what you are thinking about is how that then gets translated out to the work that people are doing with the people who the team is serving. And then finally, again, this is, well, not quite finally, but the having a framework structure for the team. Ruth mentioned that before. Not when are you meeting? How are you meeting? What platform can everybody get onto at this point? Again, this is really important during this time where we all are working remotely, and that we may have different capacity, capability, in terms of internet speed and all those technological issues that have come up that we become more aware of. It's important to have that structured and discussed and really figured out. Finally, I want to just make a note about the idea of really thinking about or taking a trauma-informed care approach or having a trauma-informed lens to the work, because in that way you can really have a sense of how people, you know, that everybody might be reacting differently to the clinical situation, to a family situation. And if we understand that it's something that something has happened, is what we talk about with using a trauma-informed question, right? What is happening, what happened, as opposed to what's wrong, can really help a team also understand one another and build that kind of trust that Ruth was mentioning before, not only towards the supervisor, but also amongst each other. So these are some important kind of concepts or ideas and steps towards building a interprofessional team that can work and optimize the work that they do towards the people that they serve. I'm not going to go into the sort of some tips and some ways that, if we can go to the next slide. And this is where we're hoping that you also have, there's a lot of creative ideas out there of how to do this. And please feel free to put in the chat box if you have found something that you found was just worked so well for your team in terms of this team building around the principles that I just mentioned before. So huddles, you know, again, this is what we also, for my team at the ACT Institute at CPI, we meet every day. In the beginning, now we meet a little less, but we have these regular huddles where we can just get together, and as we start the day, talking about how am I doing, what happened since we last met, and then also sort of begin to plan the day. So that's a good sort of check-in for people. And to knowing what your team, how your team is doing, but also what they're doing, and that everybody knows what each other is doing for that particular day or those particular few days that you are in between when you're meeting. Build in time to catch up personally and professionally as part of those huddles. Some teams are now also meeting up on Zoom after hours, when they usually get together and have an activity, a painting activity, or other games that people do, just to also enjoy one another in a way that you could do before when you were in the office, sort of more spontaneously, but now you can also think about doing something like that during this time. Important, also make sure to elicit work-related concerns, making sure that people so you have, again, the sense of what stress people might be under right now, both personally and professionally, and also about working remotely. Other ideas, sharing funny stories during the day via text or WhatsApp, or some of the memes or other things. Create a show and tell where staff take pictures of their workplace. Now with Zoom, you can change your background and you can show, that you're on the beach or San Francisco
in Star Wars.
Star Wars, right? Or make your own pictures, you can ping them in. Show your cats, your pets, all of these things where you're in a way inviting people into your home, and also really having the privilege of being invited into other people's note and learning more about the people that you work with. So these are some of the ideas, and I'm hoping that you have also put stuff in the chat box so that we can hear what creative ideas that you have come up with during this time and of team building in a new way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's just today, my husband and his team are doing a talent show by Zoom. I'm going to be in the background enjoying it all, but it's interesting how people need the connection, and they're making up all different kinds of wonderful ways to be able to be connected. And it's not just about the work, because they need that other connection, those other kinds of relationships that have formed. They need the socialization as well, based on all the relationships that they've developed at work. So it really is just a lot of fun. I was actually just looking around to see if I see one of my cats, but they're all leaving me alone. I wanted to do, bring up one of my cats to the screen.
Yeah.
They were like, nah, I'm not into it. Thank you, Hella. All right, so work output and productivity. I think the major thing that I want to share with you is that you, as the supervisor, are responsible for your staff's time. It's a little scary, right? I know that, because people are working at home and you're not really sure if they're doing everything. And so we're going to just have a conversation about this. And I wanted to talk about, with the first bullet here, expectations, pre-COVID responsibilities, versus the realities of right now, and your staff working remotely. For some staff, they've been able to adapt with the relaxed telehealth, regulations, and so they've been able to do that. And the organization get reimbursed for it. Supervision for that still needs to be what it always was, in addition to some of this work that we've been talking about. But you also have staff who never did have that kind of job, and so maybe they were community workers and visiting people in the hospital, or maybe they were doing their work in the person's home. And what I've learned is that there are quite a few number of organizations who don't have tasks for their staff, and this is very dangerous on a lot of levels. Number one, as a staff member, I'd feel not productive, feel not cared for, feel not thought about. There's all these ways that we can just come together and think about what you can do, what's your skill set, what can you bring to the team, and what assignments could we do, what assignments are you interested, what assignments are important for the program. And so when you have a situation like that, where a person just really cannot do their work at home, they can't transition in the way other staff can transition, it's a wonderful opportunity to look at their strengths, even looking at their challenges and saying, we have a special assignment for you. It's dangerous if they're not working, right? Because then there could be laid off or on furlough or what have you. So that's very scary. But there are things that we need that we never have time for. We never have time to read a book. We never have time to do research on a given project. And so this is a wonderful time for those staff members that need some addition to their productivity. It's a wonderful opportunity for that. And so when you do special projects, my one caveat is to ensure that there are clear instructions, clear expectations, and what you expect the final product to be. So just as an example, if you expect research, right? I want you to go on the internet and document all websites as you could find, and academic papers on this particular subject. And so what you want at the end is at least 10 references, or 20, or whatever it is that you decide, and a summation of their findings. That is one example, but it could be infinite, because it depends on the program needs. In terms of updates and the overall work output, we're talking about you creating that strong relationship with your staff, and we're also talking about you having those weekly meetings without fail as best as possible. And so that's an opportunity. And you have the huddles. Yes, I understand that. But I'm really talking about the one-on-one. And so it's an opportunity to say, what were your assignments this week? And what were your assignments last week? And so let's review last week's assignments. What were you able to get done? What were you not able to get done? And then why? What did you like about what you did last week? What was a bit challenging about last week? And then you talk about the duties for this week, the tasks, the to-dos. And that's an opportunity for you to actually say, you know what, there's a bit of a disorganization, or you can say, I really need you to prioritize this because I just heard from my manager, and there's a whole story, and that's important. A person needs to know what's priority, what can wait, what cannot wait. And that would give them more structure, and it also provides them with an opportunity to ask you specific questions around the job, and that's just really important. Some of them might be very concrete, which can be very helpful. But some of them are more like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I need help. And so that's when you'd have to really elicit and just keep asking questions and asking questions. Also, when you have staff who are really not filling up their workday, consider it a time for workforce development training. And I say that because I believe in it, but I also say that because my organization, NIAPers, we have 3 trainers all over the state, and we provide training for you. And right now we're doing that by webinar. It's wonderful, yes, tooting our own horn, but it's wonderful for you, especially for those staff who what do you have when you do workforce development training during this time? You increase the staff knowledge, all wonderful. It's an excellent use of their time, and it takes up time, right? And you can count that towards productivity. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Oh, I love this part. It's a wonderful opportunity to read practice-oriented books, or it's like part of the special projects I was talking about, but it's more specific. Who always wanted to learn CBT or DBT or mindfulness or motivational interviewing or trauma-informed care? It's a wonderful opportunity to set that time aside and be able to, part of your supervision, say, this is what you're interested in, because you would have had that conversation, and we can support you in that, and you can use your work time to learn that. And then that would be part of their job while they are remote, and they'd be reporting that out to you. So you would just need to make sure, since you are responsible for their entire time and their entire productivity, to be able to say, so-and-so spent 5 hours this week on this particular project, 2 hours on this training, and then the rest of it on their work. You understand, you get the idea. Oh, I forgot to mention Larry, who's our guru in the background. He's looking at the chat box, and he's saying that there's a lot of questions coming in. I just want to let you know we want to attend to all your questions, so he's copying them so we can make sure to have them available at the end of this presentation. We're going to be asking you a lot of questions, like we said, but also at the end, we are going to be open for your questions. So that's when we will bring those up, but feel free to keep asking your questions, and Larry will set them aside for us. Okay, Paul.
Okay, so now we want to hear from you again. And the question for the chat box now is, what has surprised you when doing supervision remotely? What did you have no clue you'd be stumbling upon as a supervisor as you pivoted to remote supervision? I'm going to give you a minute or two. Please type up in the chat box. Let's hear what you have to say. Any surprises about doing this remotely? Haha.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, yeah, so I have to start reading. People are typing so quickly, these things are moving by so quickly. One was expecting people to be dressed. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Inside peeks of other of people's homes.
Yes.
Yeah. The creativity and resiliency of my staff. Wow.
I love that.
Amazing. What a nice thing to be saying. To
My
be saying
dog barking, right?
Though I never thought to do video supervision, but I love it.
Great.
How quickly I became comfortable.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a partially positive experience. Yeah, many people are kind of commenting on that. That's very comfortable.
Yeah. That I would be the one to figure out technology.
That's funny. I know how that person feels.
My staff in their robes.
No, no. No.
How understanding and willing the staff are to work together. That's nice.
Lovely.
I'm surprised that the people I supervise want to talk more than ever. They've never been there, and they're so chatty.
Yeah, we're all desperate for that social connection.
Yeah. Actually, somebody early on said that it sometimes can be challenging for the supervisor because people do want to talk and chat, and that they have many people that would like that social connection. So it's both a positive and can also be maybe a little bit of a lot for the supervisor.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that my team had performed better from home than when we were at the office.
Interesting.
My team enjoys working from home, isn't this? This is really something.
And somebody saying that staff really like the work that they do. And that's like really seeing the commitment, I think, in situations like this. I've also been really just being blown away by the commitment of everyone during this time.
Yeah, this is just, we're hearing a lot of people with very similar findings. I know I supervise a team of trainers, and we've been working together as a group for, God, probably 7 or 8 years. And we now do every 8:15, we do a Zoom huddle meeting every morning. And I thought we had a well-functioning team of trainers before, but this has really brought it to a whole nother level, and that's been a shock for me, beyond shocking. How much better we're functioning as a team. And I think part of it is a little bit more informal. You get to know each other better. You get to see each other's, offices and living rooms and dens. But beyond that, it's just the everyday contact has really made a difference for us. So I'm looking to see themes here. One surprise is how effective this can be. People like working from home. Higher level of engagement from all team members. Staff working many more hours than they do when in the office. And, that's a mixed blessing.
Yes.
On one hand, the commitment's a wonderful thing. On the other hand, as I think we mentioned before, there are these boundary issues. When you're at home, sometimes it's harder to walk away. Ruth had mentioned that before. And as a supervisor, I want to encourage people that when the day's over, it's over. But it's hard.
And let your staff know that it's okay that it's over. Just because you're working from home doesn't mean you have to work after hours. It's okay.
Yeah.
If somebody really needs you, they'll call you.
Somebody said that she thought that by being home, she would have lunch, but she hasn't had lunch yet. So I think we have to, when we get to the self-care thing, Ruth, that you're going to talk about it a little bit later, how important that is. Yeah.
I see one person says, I feel that remote meetings should continue after things go back to normal because sometimes you're too busy to come together in one place. And we're going to pick up on this issue of what to continue with when things go back to normal towards the end of today's webinar. So thank you for that. Okay, we can go on and on, but I think we see some of the major themes. And once again, thanks folks so much for sharing with us. We have a lot more chat box questions, and we hope you continue to do that. Thank you. Okay, so we're now going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about 5 elements of supervision, and then we're going to talk about how you are or how you can adjust or adapt each of these elements to your current realities. So the 5 elements are case presentations, skills training, group supervision, field mentoring, and database supervision. We're going to show an animated video right now that gives you some details about each of these. And then we've got a bunch of questions and thought exercises for us all to do.
I can't get rid of the squigglies on the screen. So we'll just have to ignore that.
It's okay, it makes it more colorful.
Many of us
Let me know if you
provide
hear it, Paul.
supervision to practitioners, yet we rarely receive training in effective supervisory methods. So we've identified 5 helpful tools for your supervision
Do you hear it,
toolkit.
Paul?
Yes.
Case presentation, skills training, group supervision, field mentoring, and data-based supervision. You may already integrate some of these components into your supervision. However, let's discuss these helpful tools for supervisors that may help to improve practitioner skills. Case presentations are an effective way for practitioners to receive guidance. It is critical to establish a safe environment for people to honestly discuss their work. Ensure that the meeting tone is welcoming and that you model this behavior. Here is an effective 6-step approach that the supervisee may follow when presenting a case. Provide a summary of the background information. Identify challenges faced in working with this client, the reason for the consultation. Respond to clarifying questions that are raised. Brainstorm care strategies. Select a specific care strategy to implement. At the next meeting, the supervisee can report on the client's progress and, if needed, discuss alternative care strategies. Training practitioners to learn new skills can be a valuable way to facilitate practice change. For example, a practitioner working with clients suffering from an anxiety disorder may use progressive muscle relaxation, a behavioral technique used to help manage anxiety. A 3-step approach can be used to teach practitioners these techniques or skills. The first step is tell. Tell the practitioner what the skill is, why it is important, and how to do it. The second step is show. Show the practitioner how to perform the skill. The third step is do. Provide the learner with the opportunity to use and refine the skill. Group supervision is efficient, and it also allows practitioners to learn from one another. An effective approach is to alternate between case presentations and skills training sessions. Ideally, group supervision should occur regularly. As with case presentations, effectiveness is highly dependent on your attention to creating a safe learning environment. Field mentoring is a timely way to teach and coach. This supervision approach can happen in the office or the field. Field mentoring starts with the supervisor sitting in with a practitioner who is working with a client. It is important to explain why the supervisor is present and to get permission from the client before beginning. The supervisor observes the practitioner-client interaction and, when helpful and appropriate, models specific behaviors to coach the practitioner. This is effective because it gives the supervisor a chance to provide immediate feedback. Data-based supervision uses information that is available to the supervisor and the practitioner. This is used to improve the practitioner's performance and can involve tracking important processes and outcomes, such as engagement, symptom improvement, or employment. For example, a practitioner may periodically administer a measure of depression to track a client's symptoms. The practitioner and supervisor can then review the depression measure for the individual, using these data to inform the focus of the supervision. Think about your current supervisory practice. How many of these 5 components do you now use? Adding and combining tools to your supervisory toolkit can result in greater effectiveness for you and increased success for the practitioners you supervise.
Okay. I
All
should
right.
mention, if you'd like to see that video again, it's available in CPI's learning management system. You can just go to the search engine there, type in supervision, and it'll show up for you. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide, please. And this one's about creating a safe space, which you may recall was mentioned, in the video. And from my way of looking at things, one of the most important things I think we can do as supervisors is create a safe space where the people we supervise can be honest with themselves and with us, and tell us about the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak, in a way that they feel will advance their learning and advance their communication with you. And I think that's hard enough to do under normal circumstances. But the question now is, under the current circumstances, how can you make this happen? Are there adaptations you have to make, in order to help create or continue the safe space? How do you do it? Why is it important? So if you can take a minute or two and type up in the chat box, let's see what responses we get to this. How do you help your staff feel safe with one another and with you while you're doing all the supervision remotely? Let's see what people have to say. I'm going to start reading, but please keep typing up, folks. I declare a no judgment zone. I have to remember that. Can I use that phrase? I like that phrase. That's good. I do weekly mental health check-ins and try to instill humor. Give them time to discuss their personal needs and situation. Yeah.
Share my own.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, share my own experiences, I think, is helpful, as somebody's saying.
Yeah. And, and we're finding this at CPI as well in our staff meetings generally, that, it's hard to get to business if you don't validate where people are at. So it's just an important thing to do besides being the right thing to do. Listen, don't jump in with solutions. Self-disclosure, somebody just mentioned here. Be careful the tone I use. Sharing my issues and challenges. It was good. Lots of
also using the Zoom features, polls, the whiteboard, some of these creative things that you can actually do during supervision too. So great.
I see one person said, I let myself be vulnerable as well. Normalizing people's feelings. And I'm curious if doing this remotely makes this any more difficult, or the things you've had to do a little bit differently by doing this remotely. If anybody would like to type that up, that'd be great. Mindfulness activities, encouraging them to ask questions, remaining and reminding them that others likely have the same questions and concerns, talking about our strengths.
Encourage people to bring topics to the agenda.
Nice. Validate feelings.
Somebody says, explain vulnerability and how that, when I went away here. Explain why vulnerability can lead to solutions.
Here's an interesting one. I don't think it has been harder since I had good rapport with them already. So it's almost like you've got goodwill in the bank, so it carries over. That's an interesting observation. Using an icebreaker, looking for personal burnout. This is great. This was an interesting burnout, yes, and how it can look differently working from home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting point.
I think talking remotely or on the phone allows people to open up more. Yeah, thank you, folks. This is excellent.
And then the last one here, I just want to mention, encourage sharing best practices staff have discovered by working remotely. So really that knowledge exchange, kind of what we're doing here, right? What works, what has been working, and how can we build up new ways of doing things in this new environment. So
I mean, one of the things that I've learned as a trainer and a supervisor through the past, what is this now, 2 months, is I've become more humble about the fact that this is such a new reality for all of us, and I'm not the expert. And oftentimes my supervisees, are learning things that they're teaching me. And so to have a forum where we can just openly share with one another, makes such a big difference here. This is all new for all of us. Okay, if we can have the next question, please. We're going to have a series of questions now. So now the same questions, but this is around how can you adapt the case presentations that we were talking about to this virtual world, to supervising remotely. Remember, case presentations had a number of steps, providing a summary and identifying your challenges and brainstorming strategies and figuring out what to try and then trying it out and seeing if it goes. How can you adapt that to your supervision now? And maybe some of you already are doing that, and if so, share that with us, please. We'll give you a minute or two, type up. We'll have a series of these questions around these various elements of supervision. Oh, this is cool. Via Zoom, the host can share their screen and review the case review with the team, form with the team. Very cool.
So somebody's here saying something that I don't know what it is. We use an S-bar. I'm not quite sure. And I've sent out a document for staff to use. Maybe some, do you know what that might be referring to? But
it's a particular way of communicating. If Heather would like to type up and give more details, that'd be great.
Yeah.
It's a particular format for communicating. Bullet points to summarize. Using a template form for case presentations, we can then connect that to the other person's comments with maybe even sharing that through Zoom. It's nothing new to supervision, just the added piece of boundaries. Christopher liked my comment around being humble. We really do have to be humble now more. We always do, but now more than ever.
Yeah.
This says we move to S-bar to be better focused to start. It's an organizational structure.
Oh, it's nice. It's situation background assessment recommendation. Thank you.
Yeah, here's I worry about statements related to best practices when we've never done work in a pandemic. So yeah, so really what we're trying to do is together discover some best practices and see whether the previously used best practices can be adapted. So there's, people are reporting they're still doing case presentations. This is great. Yeah, S-bar situation, background, assessment, recommendation. Yeah. I created a case presentation template that I sent out before supervision. Perfect.
So different creative ways of organizing the conversation. It sounds like people are using.
Yeah. This is wonderful. Thank you, folks. So we're going to move on to the next question, which is about skills training. Once again, we're going to go element by element here. And remember, one very common way to do skills training is what we call tell, show, and do. Telling, in this case, your supervisee, what it is you're trying to teach them, why it's important and how you do it, and then showing them and having them have a chance to practice it in some way. Can you adapt this to your distance supervision? Are you doing that? Share with us if anybody's been doing any skills training the past couple of months through remote supervision, or how you can do that. I mean, we're accustomed to this kind of like role playing and modeling face to face. And I guess the question is, can that be adapted to a Zoom meeting or a WebEx or FaceTime or whatever platforms you're using?
So Paul, it's 2:13, and I would love for us to start taking questions at 2:20.
Great, so we'll move pretty quickly through the next few slides, next few questions. Thank you, Ruth.
You're welcome.
Somebody is mentioning doing role play on Zoom using that as skills training too.
Oh, here's one, a training. Oh, this is moving so quickly. You're all typing up so quick, which is wonderful. A training that I am now going to uses the breakout rooms in Zoom. Then we come back to the main group. That's a great way to do skills training.
Oh, I need to learn how to do that. That sounds great.
Yeah, Zoom has a lot of different features and I think is being used in different ways. So breakout group the white.
That's a brilliant way.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sharing screen so that you can
Yeah.
really see the write-ups. Really wonderful.
I found skills training to be very challenging. One thing I've been trying is asking my staff to give me examples of how they might phrase things in the context of an intervention. That's great. It's
Yeah.
a great way to do that. There's a shout out to Tell Show Do from the pros community. We use share screen a lot, and we've done a few role plays to support staff dealing with challenging client behavior. This is perfect. You know what? There's more coming, but let's move on within the interest of time. So the next chat box question is around group supervision. And are you able to use these platforms to do group supervision? Can you use your Zoom? Are you doing that? I think we already saw some comments that people are, but let's give folks a minute or so. Yeah, every week, yes. So it's doable. Absolutely doable. Yes, weekly, found it very helpful. Yeah, okay. Thank you, folks. Perfect. That one adapts easily.
Yes.
Next chat box question. Field mentoring. Remember, this means basically spending time with your supervisee, oftentimes when they're working with the individual. And what's important here is that you have the individual's permission to be there and you explain why you're there. And if the person doesn't want you there, you shouldn't be there. Anybody try this, or do you think this can be adapted to be done, remotely?
Shared phone meeting, the participant permission.
Yeah. Yeah, three-way calls, Zoom. They're ahead of us, Hella.
Yeah.
This is great. Observation of group therapy session by joining Zoom.
Right. So you can, somebody actually early on, I'm looking like this early on in the chat, said something about being able to, if there's a breakout session, a group that you can pop in as the host of that to each of these breakout sessions so you can see what's going on. So another way of observing and being able to provide feedback to your supervisees.
This is great. Let's move on, and maybe we'll skip one or two of these because I know we're really hurting for time right now. We'll skip database supervision, although not because we don't think it's important, we think it's critically important. And Ruth, this goes back to you, right?
Yeah. So I'm recently into mindfulness. Actually, it's now part of my role where every morning I don't do it in the morning, but it's uploaded every morning where I'm doing a mindfulness exercise. And sometimes it's just an extra task that I need to do. But then on the back end, when I'm really listening to it, it really does help to center me and to reduce my stress. And so I bring this up because there are things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. And if you burn out, what's going to happen? Well, it's not just going to affect you in terrible ways, physical ways, emotional ways, but it also affects your supervisees, and it affects the people that they work with. There's a trickle-down effect as stress just builds and builds. And it's important to take care of ourselves, yes, for our job, yes, for our staff, yes, for the people that they work with, but also for ourselves and our family. It affects our entire life. And so to think about what de-stresses you, what can you do to take care of yourself? And for some people, that might be small, concrete things, turning off the computer completely so you're not even hearing the emails popping in, at the end of your day, whatever time that is for you. And other things, connecting with a girlfriend or through one of these visual platforms, Zoom or another one. Here, it says your peers. That essentially is other managers just like you. And maybe it's an opportunity to get together by Zoom and just say, hey, how you doing this and how you doing that and how you're doing overall. It's just really important to get together and to be proactive in your self-care. So what's on the screen right now is really the way that you can be proactive. And you see here the supervisor. So that's your supervisor. So in the same way, in your capacity as supervisor, you're providing support to your staff. Your supervisor can be doing the same for you. And it may not be second nature to other people. And so it's important to say, this is what I'm doing, but this is how I'm feeling. and I'm concerned. And so that's an opportunity for the supervisor to provide you support and maybe even to help you figure out ways to reduce your stress and maybe even your workload as well. Of course, we know the Human Resource Department and EAP, you know, think about your family and friends. And the last one is you. And last year I went on vacation, and for the first time in my life, I went away for 2 full weeks. It was just my husband and I, and it was one of my favorite vacations, a beach vacation. 2 weeks without work, out of country, so my phone wasn't even working, and it was the best thing that I could have done. And it's officially a year and 2 weeks later since I came back from this vacation, and I still feel the excitement and a high from it. And I think about me sitting by the pool or me by, you know, on the beach, and it actually brings my stress down when I remember those things. Now, I'm not saying go book yourself a beach vacation. Well, none of us can right now anyway. But the idea is it doesn't have to be big. It could be small. The idea is to take care of yourself. I do recommend if you need someone to walk you through a de-stressing exercise, just go to the NIAPR's website every day, every weekday. That is, there's a new one that I post. So please take care of yourself. That is my one message. There's many messages here today, but that is my one message to you today. It's important for you to take care of you. Okay.
So Ruth, should we make this a rhetorical question or chat box question at the time?
No, chat box. I think there's a lot of questions. Larry said there's a lot of questions.
So this
So we want to be getting to that.
Yeah, this is our last chat box question. And it's really this what we used to call the $64,000 question. And it is, so how will your supervision be different in the future based on what you're learning now doing remote supervision? Is this going to have an impact even when things settle back down into the new normal? And maybe we'll give people a minute or two, let's see what they type up, and then we can move on to their questions. What will endure? Continued video supervision.
Yes, I like that.
Or for live supervision remotely, being more structured.
Mm-hmm.
Video meetings, or for both video and in person.
Still with remote and more frequent.
I mean, what I'm taking away from everything I'm seeing fly by right now is that there's enough about this that people want to hang on to. There's something about this remote supervision that has value, not just because we had to do it now, but it actually adds increased value as a supervisor. I'm seeing that right all over the place here.
Somebody's mentioning that it's really important to continue to innovate, because right now we are innovating, right? And so continue to innovate in the work so that we keep moving forward. I think that's a really, really important point.
And I see here, be sure to continue to check in personally with staff, which is something we might not have done in the past. Now we kind of have a good excuse to do it, a good reason to do it. So, okay, Ruth, let's move on to people's questions. And thank you, everybody, for typing up.
Yes, thank you so much. So I know there's a lot of questions. We've got Larry in the background. Larry, you going to share the questions?
Hello?
Hi, everybody, meet Larry. Larry, meet everybody.
Yes, you couldn't hear me for a second, so I'm glad we're back. So I'm going to ask while I read a couple of questions. A lot of the questions I copied were ultimately seemed like they were answered by the presentation. So while I read a couple of questions or comments that people that seem to resonate with other people reading the chat, I'm going to ask that anyone who had a question that they don't think was resolved by the training, maybe they can ask it now. So while I'm reading them, the other people will pick up on reiterated questions. But somebody was talking about their supervision and security a little bit, that they have staff who submit weekly logs and they've never had a way of verifying the accuracy, but they've always felt their staff had integrity around the hours that they work. Why am I questioning that activity now that, even though I couldn't monitor it before?
You know, it's interesting, and I recently had a conversation exactly about this. We think that we should be able to trust more with people being in the office, and sometimes that's not accurate. You can maybe even trust them more when they're working from home. And how many of us have talked about all the additional hours that we're working? It is important to be able to have a level of trust, but it's important to be able to provide people with guidelines and with expectations. And listen, as long as they're meeting your expectations and they're doing the work and you're seeing the work that's being done, you know, who cares if they're doing it at midnight? I mean, in the end, we don't want them to burn out, but are they doing the work? That's the question.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's also another thing going on. This is just, you know, I could be wrong, but I also think for many of us right now, a lot of the assumptions we made about so many things in life, you know, we're now questioning. The world's different now. And so that carries into our work as well. You know, we're just a little unsure about so many things right now.
And I really like that you're thinking about this, the person who asked the question, because it's important. Essentially, we all have bosses, and the question is going to be asked of us. You know, what do we know that our staff is doing or not doing? And so it's important to keep on top of that.
Okay, thank you. So the next one we have, this person, and I'm imagining some others from the way they reacted, have 2 checks in daily, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, in addition to their weekly individual supervision, bi-weekly all staff meetings. I'm wondering if 2 checks in daily is too excessive for the staff, counting all of this other contact as well.
I think as long as it's purposeful.
I'm sorry, Ruth?
No, I'm sorry. I was just thinking as long as it's purposeful. So when we meet in the morning, I know what it is, what we're going to talk about. You know, and when we meet in the afternoon, I know what it is we're going to talk about, so that I understand the purpose behind the 2 meetings.
And I know I have needs for those meetings and check-ins, and the staff does. And I'd ask them, you know, is this meeting your need? Is this helping, you know, as well? And you know, I would take that into account.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, because it's like in the beginning, when this first happened, this with the COVID crisis, there was a need to meet every day for my team, and so we did that, and then all of a sudden felt like, oh no, this is maybe too much. Let's do, because it cut into people's ability to get ready to do what they needed to do. So also thinking about things like this in a flexible way. So there's the standing meetings that you have, and then there are the huddles that maybe you can think about being more flexible and building on what your team is needing and expressing a need for.
You know, before we move on to the next question, I just want to ask the question of the person who wrote that. What's your purpose of the 2 meetings a day? Think about that. And is it to check in on them? Is it to find out what they did throughout the day? Is the morning one to maybe schedule what it is that they're going to do? Then that seems okay. It might be a bit excessive, and that's a one-on-one conversation that you have with each of your staff members. But also consider your reasoning. And you know, there's between levels, right? Between trust and not trust, and everything in the continuum in between. And so maybe it's time to start letting go a little bit of that. I love the idea of the huddles. We do that at NIAPRS. You can do them every morning. And it's time for everyone to talk about what they're doing that day. And they can even talk about what they did or accomplished the day before.
You know, Ruth, a couple of people checked in while you guys were discussing that. One person thought 2 times of checking in seems excessive, but then someone else pointed out that, you know, if it's office staff, if you guys are usually in the office together, you can walk by and check anytime you want. So 2 times for people who are normally working in the office,
Right.
it may not be excessive at all. They
Right.
may, you know, they may expect to be checked on. So it really also, I think, will depend on, based on what they're saying, on the job that the person has, if they work.
That's right.
Right.
So, so a lot of the other questions were addressed. I want to bring up some of the other things people brought up that a lot of people reacted well to. Somebody said virtual coffee breaks once a week help you stay connected as human beings and gives everyone a break from the content, and a lot of people really responded well.
I love that. I love that. Everyone, thank you so much. It is time now. We've been together for an hour and a half, and I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate Paul and Hella and Larry, and all the work, Larry, that you're doing behind the scenes for us. So thank you all for joining us. Remember, within 24 hours, we'll be sending you an evaluation. We want everyone to fill that out. However, if you want your CEU, you must fill it out. All right. Contact me anytime at ruthcw@nyapers.org. That's ruthcw@nyaprs.org. You take care. Thank you for being with us.
Take care, everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Take care.